Hello, I'm Dave Jibson. I'm the editor of Third Wednesday magazine. And today I'm here without a guest, or rather, the guest is me. In addition to being the editor of Third Wednesday, I also write a little poetry from time to time. And today I'm going to share with you some poems from my most recent collection, Detective Coloration, which was published by Kelsay Books. Let's see if I can, there you go. Detective Coloration from Kelsay Books in 2021. The first poem I'm going to read to you is actually the first poem in the book. It's an ekphrastic piece on the work of Morse Graves, a 20th century American artist from the Northwest School, heavily influenced by Buddhism. And in the poem, I try to maintain the mood and timbre of the actual visual art that he did. The poem is called The Birds of Morse Graves. Oh, these are not the pretty painted plovers of Audubon, but spirit birds of nature that seek to nest in that wounded wilderness of the inner eye, maddened by the sound of machinery and logged-off mountains, myths of division and separation, Taoist owls in times of change, moonbirds with their haunted bouquets, singing in the next dimension. Next, a little science fiction poem, The Canals of Mars, it's called. And lately, we've had a lot of exploration of Mars going on, but Mars was a much more romantically viewed planet early in the 20th century. And this is a little tribute. Canals of Mars. How glorious the canals of Mars, as Percival Lowell described them. How dry the Martian desert, how welcome the relief of water pouring from the polar ice cap, flowing like life's own blood through the arteries and veins over the surface of the warrior planet. And where they intersect, a sprawling city of crystal towers, home to the great university where once a year in Martian summer, great minds gather to debate the theory that there could be life on Earth. Too close to the sun's deadly heat, the philosopher scientists say. How could it be? Too wet and the air too heavy to breathe, argue the philosopher physicians. Nothing could survive in those conditions. Even if life could exist there, argues the philosopher poet, how could one write music or poetry or fall in love under the influence of a single moon? What they left behind. A carpet stain that will never come out, a toy fire truck with no wheels, a doll with one arm, naked, one eye permanently closed. 4 extra squares of kitchen linoleum tile, a worn broom, straw tips blackened with soot, an overlooked drawer containing a tin box of assorted Band-Aids with only the smallest size left. 1 leaky D-cell battery, some rubber washers, twist ties, bottle brush, a box of strike anywhere matches, paper clips, and an extra stopper for a bathroom sink. In a closet, a half-used can of Comet cleanser with a rusty lid, a dozen wire hangers, most of them bent, a paper grocery bag full of plastic grocery bags, about 80% of a broken dustpan. 1 tennis shoe, child-sized, left foot, still tied in a double knot with a muddy sock stuffed in the toe. Now I want to read to you some images poems for Sijo. Sijo is a Korean form of poetry. It consists of 3 lines of 14 to 16 syllables each, for a total of 44 to 46 syllables. Each line contains a pause near the middle, similar to a caesura. Contemporary Sijo are often printed in 6 lines with a line break at each caesura. I'm going to read a series of 4 Sijo that are numbered, and it is a seasonal cycle. Here are 4 Sijo. Sijo number 1. Many weeks I have been looking forward to this day. The Siberian iris have bloomed, their throats heavenly blue. But like every good thing, they will fade and wither too soon. Adagio number 2. In the sunny front garden, I have raised up a new bed with planks of rough cedar and a special mix for growing. Lavender are so happy now that they raised me up with them. Adagio number 3. It's the time of year that salmon come into the river. The overnight temperatures have begun to signal a change. If the frost were a bell, you could hear it ring in the distance. Adagio number 4. At the bus stop, a girl with a job shivers against the cold. Together in silence, we wait this dark winter morning, occasional flakes of snow catching in her long eyelashes. Here's another ekphrastic poem, this one based on the 11th Symphony of Dmitri Shostakovich. And with this poem, I follow each of the 4 movements of the symphony. Symphony number 11, after Dmitri Shostakovich, St. Petersburg, 1905. Adagio, the Palace Square. Cold and quiet, the crowd of cellos gathers. Like snow in the clouds, menace of timpani rumble, an earthquake beneath the square. A call of brass from some distant place. Allegro, the 9th of January. A restlessness of burning violins, a swirling blizzard, a sudden riot of snare drums like gunfire. Timpani horses thunder to the march and clash of gleaming brass. A panic of piccolos and woodwinds. Adagio, eternal memory. A bent mother searches among the thump of drums in the quiet dark of deserted streets, picks through remnants of shattered violas, crushed bass clarinets, and trampled flute for her son, the harpist, who lies frozen, stretched over the splintered carcass of his instrument. Adagio non troppo, Tocsin. Tocsin toll in the churches, a call in resilient G minor, to a future of violent trumpets, trombones, cymbals of power, tubular bells, celesta, and strings. But for now, the music is to set in the square. Here is the title poem of Active Coloration. Walking stick is indistinguishable from its habitat, as is the deadleaf butterfly, the pygmy seahorse, the tawny frogmouth of Tasmania, and the giant fish. So it is with the poet of a certain age, hidden in a corner booth in the back of the cafe, as quiet as any snowshoe hare, still as a heron among the reeds. Allegro. Vivaldi's The Four Seasons plays in the background at Pete's Coffee and Tea, where I glance over the shoulder of a stranger at cryptic lines of mathematical formulae. Elegant numbers, letters, and symbols fill his computer's glowing screen, some enclosed in their protective shells of parentheses. I say to him that they look intimidating, but he tells me that to him they are art more beautiful than the Mona Lisa, more spiritual than the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. I cannot dispute his claim, and I imagine that I am looking at the complex equation that explains life's place in the universe, where epsilon represents the axial tilt of the Earth, lambda, the cosmological constant, phi, the golden ratio of art, theta, the passage of time, sigma, the sum of all things. The pizzicato notes of the Winter Concerto call to mind the sound of the rain as it strikes the window and freezes at the tempo of both allegro and omega. And the next poem is called Permission to Land. It's actually a garage sale poem, which I like very much, garage sale poems. Permission to Land. Her husband was a pilot, she explains to me, as I rummage through a box of aeronautical charts on a long table underneath the shade of an ancient maple in the front yard of the tidy house. They're large when they're unfolded, interesting to look at, with cryptic symbols for navigational hazards like radio towers, electrical power lines, and buildings taller than 2 stories. All the things a pilot would want to avoid. She tells me I can have the whole box for $5. How could I resist at that price? A box of charts identifying all of life's dangers, magnetic compass deviations, and every radio frequency I would ever need to request permission to land. And while we're on the subject of flying, here is a little poem called How to Fly. The book is like a pair of opened wings on the round kitchen table. It has the same title as this poem. Some of the illustrations are in color, charts and graphs, mostly black and white. There is a table of contents at the front, a glossary of terms at the back. The chapters have titles like Basic Principles of Aerodynamics, Reducing Drag, and my favorite, Generating Lift. Outside the window, a pair of mourning doves is raising 2 chicks in a nest under the eaves. I sit at the table with my cup of tea, turn to the chapter on takeoffs and landings, begin reading to them aloud. A few years ago, I published a chapbook based on noir film. And so this is another ekphrastic poem, not on a particular film, kind of on the genre of film noir itself. And this will be the final poem of the reading. The poem is called Dark City. Dark City is a mighty beast, a sprawling monster with a skeleton of steel covered in a concrete overcoat. In Dark City, laws and souls are trampled in the street, the strong eat the weak, lives dangle from dangerous heights. Living here is a fevered dream. A man can go off his nut on these streets among the jaundiced cops, corrupt politicians, psychotic crooks. In the city's tenderloin, seedy rooms are clammy with the residue of spoiled hopes, abandoned dreams, wallpaper that sweats fear. Everywhere is a crackling buzz of neon signs that stare each other down across dirty streets and grimy, infected avenues. Dark City is a mighty beast with a taste for human flesh, your flesh, if you make a wrong turn. I want to thank you for listening. That's all for now from David Jibson and from Third Wednesday Magazine. Hope you enjoyed it.